I guess it is all about learning, isn't it? And this brings me right away and accidentally to the motto of this panel. Creativity. Can we learn it? Can we learn it to be creative? Creativity derives from the word creation. And creation is the beginning, is God, is energy. I'm honored to introduce 3 beautiful, in every aspect of life, women to talk about a lot of energy. Please come up. Lala, kannst du da? Inga. Well, how do we do this now the best? Okay. Well, I will start and introduce everybody while I'm going along. So I start with Desiree Gruber, who is a highly achieved CEO and entrepreneur, producer of Runway Project, nominated for 7 Emmys, works with Heidi, forms careers, has 20 awards, was voted in 2010 the most famous woman entrepreneur. I looked up her resume and I was so impressed, you know. And now she stepped out of an airplane, transcontinental flight, I'm sure dehydrated, tired, you know, jet-lagged. And the room is full waiting for your answers about creativity. Now, you might not feel it at all right now. I know that you work with a therapist called Phil Stutz. I really accidentally was reading the book, starting with the book 4 weeks ago, and it talks about tools. And it's very interesting because I think the most important tool for all creative people is moving ahead. It's just not giving up, moving ahead. You know, you hit a wall, you get up and you move ahead. I would like to know, I'm sure it happens quite a lot. You're flying in somewhere and people want decisions and creative moments. How do you do it, Desiree?
We're talking about fear and how you get over that on that aspect to make something happen, to create something. So you have to take action. And a lot of times, the opposite of action actually is fear. It's holding you back. It's not allowing you to move forward, to do something that you really want to do, to talk to somebody that you think could change your career, that can make a difference for you. So for me, with my clients, I'm sort of the go-between a lot of times, where they call me, they want to see something, they want to actualize and make something happen. They call me and they say, okay, Desiree, can you make this happen? So for me, it was being able to get out and amplify for them what they're trying to express to the world. And at one point, which is when I met Dr. Phil Stutz, who created a book called The Tools, which is out now, and it's really a terrific book.
The book, I have to screech in here.
Yeah.
The book is written by a therapist who said, you know what, I have enough of digging in childhood problems. I don't want to access that anymore. I want my clients that come to me and say, you know what, I have a problem, I need help. I don't want to go with Freud and dig what happened in the sandbox. I want to have some tools. And you worked with him. I'm so jealous that you got to work with him because I think this is such a great access and new way.
Yeah, he works out of Hollywood, California. He's sort of a secret source for a lot of Hollywood producers, actors, writers, directors. Because one of the hardest things about creating a film or writing a script is taking the action, because you're going to be ultimately judged on that. So it's your heart, it's your creativity that you're putting on the paper or putting on film, and then you have to give it to the world, and the world says, this is great, hooray, or they say, this stinks, and it's awful, and you're a bad person, and why did you do this? So that fear of being judged for a star or an actor or a writer is the same fear we have every day that makes us not do things that we want to do. So it makes
you get out of the comfort zone.
It gets you out of you have to get out of your comfort zone. So a lot of us want to do things. We have ideas that we want to create, projects that we want to see come to life, and we're not taking action because of that fear. So
that's how you do it?
There's a lot of tools for getting over fear. I think that one of my favorite tools was actually, before I would take a step, that I was afraid of doing, calling somebody, where I felt like, okay, if I call this person and they say yes to this project, my life is going to change. My career is going to change. Something's going to happen. There's going to be some major thing. So it's sort of backing off of that and saying, if I make this call to this person, 10 things might happen. Yeah, maybe that could happen, my career can change, but maybe I'm going to get some information that's going to really help me understand why my project is not working right now, and that could help me shape my project in a direction so I could get it to the next step. Or maybe that person's going to introduce me to somebody, or maybe they're not going to call me back, and that's life. And the point of if somebody not calling you back, to get over that fear, if that's a fear that you have, that you're going to call somebody and they're not going to call you back, or they're going to say no, one of Phil's tricks is, you say it's a pre-win. Just calling the person, you win by making the call, because you had the bravery to step up and make the call, whereas you know other people didn't. So even if you don't get your call returned, you say, okay, that was a win. I made the call. I was brave enough. And it's sort of crazy, but on the creative side, if you want to be creative, it's very hard to put your ideas out there because of being judged. So he created these tools, these really actionable steps for you to say, okay, why am I not making, we all have this, let's be honest. There's calls on your call sheet, or there's people in your mind that you're thinking about. I should call this person. So you get in, you have breakfast, you make 5 easy calls, you return some emails. Oh, it's lunchtime, I don't want to call them because it's lunchtime. I don't want to bother them at lunch. And then in the afternoon, something happens, and then it's 5 o'clock, and you're like, I'm going to call them tomorrow. And that's the important call. So that's what Phil says. You have to take that action number 1 the next day. That's before you do anything, before you return the emails that have come into you. Those things are acting on you. You have to act on the things that you want to act on. And that's the first call. You have to make the call that you're most afraid to make, that's been sitting on your call sheet for a week.
So if I understand you right, your feeling of being creative is accessed by defeating the fear to be creative. And you have tools for that.
Yes, but fear, you're never going to get over. Fear exists for all of us. Everybody has a fear, let's be honest. I mean,
course.
I'm American, Obama's afraid he's going to fail. Mitt Romney's afraid he's going to, they're both in a state of fear right now, but they can't just hole up. He can't sit in the White House and not do anything right now. He's got to get out every day and take actionable steps to drive him towards what he believes would be the win, and his ultimate creative place. For him is ruling the nation. For somebody else, it's writing a script. For somebody else, it might be just saying hello to somebody. And I don't think any of these fears are bigger or better than other fears. It's the same, it's the human condition. We all have fears. It's inherent, it's anthropological. So how do you create tools for yourself to get up every day and move out of your comfort zone and take action steps that you believe will take you towards your goal? And it might not be I think that people in a fear is they think one call is going to happen. It's not the one call. The one call starts a chain of events that takes you to the next place. Like anything in creativity, you don't just wake up and say, I have the best idea of the world today. Say, I have an idea here. Let me think about it. Let me call this person. They say, oh, what about this? And it starts to form and shift and create because of you taking action around that idea. So I think fear is a big hindrance for all of us in all kinds of businesses. It's not just for people in the creative field.
So I see now the explanation of creativity more from a business point of view, I just learned. And I would like to continue now and come back to this with Inga Humpe, which is one of my idols since I think 27 years or something, because it started with Neon Babies, Neue Deutsche Welle, and is continuing with Zweiraumwohnung with your partner Thomas Eckhardt. And I am just so impressed with you. I mean, you compose, you produce, you write, you're a songwriter. This is a dream, and you're still alive, which is also interesting in that business because, honestly, me as a non-musician, but of course I'm reading the papers and the stuff, the gossip. There's a lot of bad powers in these musician worlds. You know, it's drugs, it's torn out souls, it's Kurt Cobain, it's Michael Jackson, it's Whitney, it's Amy. My God, you know. And then people tell you, you know what? They write the best love songs with a broken heart. I would like to know, Inga, if you dig in such holes to be creative, do you go down and you torn yourself apart, and then you feel something and you put it on paper and the lyrics come, or how do you do it?
Well, of course I do that, but I think very important to somehow live on your ideas, to invent yourself every time you do a record, to invent yourself again. The most important thing is to find yourself, and therefore you need to dig. You really need to go down and find out who am I? What is my good part? What is my bad part? Where am I weak? Where am I strong? And then I think then you can maybe come up with a good idea that feels so strong that it reaches other people. And I think the motivation also is very important. I think a lot of artists in the business, especially in the music business, they were motivated by the idea of they wanted to be loved. And I think this is really crazy, because you never get the love, the real love, from the people that see you on stage. They might adore you, but it's always a substitute for real love. And I think this can make you really, really ill and very sad and an addict and all that. So that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's in this business there's a lot of evil powers. But how do you get your best out of yourself? Can you recall when was your most important moment as a musician? Were you a broken heart, or were you flying high, or what sparks you? What gets you to write a song?
Well, I think the most exciting point is always, for me, I think it's very personal. For me, it's always when I have the feeling that I somehow went over a limit. So I'm a destroying person in one way. So I destroy my old darlings. There's this famous quote, "Kill your darlings," and I'm living on this, because I think as soon as you are stuck into a scheme or into an automatic idea, how do I write the best song? It's getting boring, it's getting a copy, or it loses power. So I think for me it's very important, that I constantly invent myself new, and that I constantly somehow ask myself, is that right? Does it feel right? And also not only for me, but with the music. Music is such a strong communication field, and it gives so much information to the people that listen to music. So I think it's very, very important that you know what you are saying, and that you know about the power of the music, and that you really put it on the right place. So, because I want to say something critical here about messages, that we have to listen to it on the radio. There are some guys, that really talk bad about women and call them bitches and stuff like that. And, these things have an influence, and these guys are very successful sometimes. They beat up their women, and they're terrible, And I think we can decide, if you want to listen to something like that. I think the message is very, very, very strong that comes over music. And so for me it's important to connect with people, to connect with women a lot. I think the subliminal messages are very, very strong also in music. And therefore I think, modern music is not about saying, oh, what a pity, I have a bad life, and this doesn't give anything to people. And I think it's very important to think about what can I give to people, what makes them strong, what gives them inspiration, or what helps them to feel themselves,
Could you tell us about the most important, or one of the most important moments where you realized, as it mostly starts in childhood, right? To know that you wanted to be a musician, that you want to work creatively? Because I learned that you and your very beautiful, talented sister, Annette, you come from a background of wow, how would you say that in English now? Konditorei. It's not a bakery, it's a place where you sell cakes. And daddy sold cakes, and mommy played the organ, and it was in a small town, and these girls became mega stars. When did you feel that you have the creativity? Did you feel some kind of power moment, or?
Well, I think it's not one thing, you know, but of course this little town and also growing up, you know, in this atmosphere, it was all. I think it felt too narrow at one point. So I think I decided, you know, to become an artist because I wanted to be rich and famous. You know, that was the first idea, you know, and then you start to become. You know, to somehow, yeah, then the journey starts to find yourself, you know, and that's a really, really different thing. You know? And when you're young and a singer girl, you know, in the 80s, I think it's different today, but, you know, in the early 80s, we were young, and I think a lot of older people tried to manipulate us, you know, because they said, oh, that's a young girl, you know, and we have an idea how she should be and what she should do. And I think we realized really early, and so we became difficult. The music sounded terrible to a lot of people. And also we were kind of trying even not to be too pretty, you know. That was really somehow like a shelter against the projections that would come from record companies, you know.
Yeah, I understand that. Now, we talked about reinventing yourself. That leads us to Leyla, who founded an amazing fashion label. And I was online today just checking it out, and I can tell you there's a sale going on. Girls, I would look it up. Great scarves, great stuff. You reinvented yourself 3 times, as far as I can judge. Probably many more times, but 3 times that we can follow as listeners. You came from a different country, obviously, and then started to study business, and then worked for MTV, and then decided to come up with a fashion brand. And I remember when I was in Los Angeles, people started talking about Lala Berlin. And that was amazing, because to make it to Los Angeles from Germany, that there's some kind of hype going on, that was a big momentum. And I was thinking about this momentum, where the energy and the creativity and everything hits that one spot that it bursts, right? It carries you, you fly high on one side. On the other side, as an actress, you know, it can happen too for a moment. You know, it's a double-edged sword, because with the flying high comes the fear again. How do I stay there? Why did it happen now? What happened? And so the success has a partner of insecurity. And I would like to know how you experienced that and what happened.
To be honest, when I stopped working for MTV, it had a certain reason, because I was fed up with working superficially in something that I thought it's cool, and I'm there like being rich and famous, and yeah, I want to do this because people should love me. And before that, I'd studied business for the sake of my parents, to give them back something. So I was actually caught in something which was not me. And I reflected so many times about my life that I said, okay, now stop it. And when I stopped, actually, I didn't want to do anything. And the knitting, which I started, which I'm doing right now again, which was the start of Lala Berlin, was actually a hobby, and it was like out of coincidence. I always say it's like Jesus came to Maria, and I didn't have a purpose to become rich and famous, so I was light. I was off the fear to come and go and become something. I just started knitting, and out of this easy doing and being happy with myself, and the self-confidence that I can do what I want to do, and having no goal, which makes me becoming again anxious. Is it happening? Am I going to be successful? I guess the success came out of this. And the creation was easier, and I didn't have lots of thought about what it's gonna be and how I'm gonna end. And even now, after 7 years, there are some points in life where I say, what am I doing? And is this success going on and on? And once I caught myself in it, I always say, stop it. Whatever happens, happens, because I'm not gonna die. If Lala is not gonna be there tomorrow, I'm gonna be there, and I'm strong. I can do whatever I wanna do. And it's not all about being totally successful with what you're doing. It's more than that. And this is, I think, something which gives me the ease to go on and on.
And to be creative.
Totally.
Of course, when you have no fear, you can, the brain has much more capacity to digest. When you fear your brain gets limited. And when you are relaxed and with no pressure, you can do much more. That's very clear. But, I mean, it went very fast. It came like a whoosh. And then there was a time where you also went too fast, I read. Do you want to talk about that?
This was actually the time, you mean now or then?
That's up to you
Maybe
now.
now it's also going too fast in sense of that company. I mean, I'm doing this on my own. And I didn't think I'm going to be a really big CEO or something. So I take it easy. So my steps are quite far for myself, and I became a mother 4 years ago, and I also handled this on my own. So at some point, if it's going too fast, everybody's asking you, are you going to do this, and a baby line, a man's line, and this, and that, and boo, and bam, become began. I say, no, stop it. Stop. And I actually decided not doing a show again because, you know, like the fashion industry is having 2 shows a year and you have to do this and you have to do that. So I actually decided to do my own thing and not doing a show because everybody wants me to do a show, but rather think about myself and how the structure of the company should be and how the collection should be instead of, again, going superficially what other people want you to do. So
this is, I have to come back to the creativity, you guys, because that's what it's about. I want to find out, and you hit the wall.
Yeah.
You did. I want to find out what method you had to get out of it, to find the spark again, to find the lightness again, to find the moment that turned it around into light, the darkness.
That's exactly the ease about life, not taking it too serious.
And not taking yourself too serious.
Not taking life too serious, not to be so, you know, I mean, what it's all about. Why are we here? I mean, I have a child, I'm happy to have her, I want to spend time with her. I don't want to work my ass off to get money, and, you know, but take it easy, you can balance life, and this is what makes my life easy and make me going further and becoming successful.
Absolutely.
Because I'm totally authentic, I'm totally real, I'm totally down to earth with everything I'm doing. I'm not flying high, I'm just here. I think this is my way of becoming free. This is personal, right? I mean, everybody is different though.
Everybody is different.
Yeah.
Some people reinvent themselves, and some people just find back to the roots, and whatever waters the tree, and that's why we are here to talk about this. And it's all great if it works, you know. So, Desiree, I heard you talking about tweeting out of the plane and keeping up with modern communication. I mean, we live in such a rapidly changing world. And especially you, as a producer and executive, you have to keep up with all this. Mm-hmm. Do you think that it limits the creativity we're talking about, or that it widens your horizon?
Wow. I think it widens it. I think that it's hard right now for us to understand. It used to be that certain people were allowed to be creative, and the rest of us consumed their creativity. And so that model's been smashed in the last 12 years. So it used to be the record labels would anoint a new star, they were the singer, and that was what we all accepted. And there was people that we knew, our friends, could perform and sing around town, but they weren't honored as a performer on the level that had been knighted by a record label. So that's changed. It's changed in everything. So it used to be an artist was an artist that won awards and that was put in museums and they were anointed. And now, for us, within our social circles, everybody can be anointed. Everybody can be a creative genius. Everybody can be an artist. And it's a different way of looking at the world. So I think that social media allows people to stretch their creative muscle and show who they are more than we used to be able to. I could maybe, I used to be able to watercolor in my backyard, but nobody would see it. Now I can tweet a photo of it out. My friends can say, oh, that's so beautiful. It's a lovely water scene or beautiful flowers. I don't paint, but I could. So it's opened the creative market up for people. So I'm a big fan of social media, and it doesn't. I don't believe it's the amount of followers you have. You can have 10 followers and be expressing yourself and influencing them and sharing your creative drive and desire with that inner circle, or you can have 1 million followers and be sharing it with them. But I think it's an important part of what's next and how the next generation is going to be sharing messages and feels about art, what they consider art. It's just such an interesting time. It's hard to say, it's not black and white. I was saying to somebody before, when I used to travel, I would go to a hotel and you'd have maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, one cell phone. I arrived today, I had a cell phone which had no battery left. I had a BlackBerry, I had an iPad, and I had a computer. So I'm in a room at my hotel today, I have 4 things I need to get charging. So what a difference in 10 years, how the world has moved. So I think you can't ignore it, and I think you have to figure out, each person should figure out how do they connect with social media and how can it enhance their life. And if you're not ready for it now, you're not ready for it. It's not a must. It's an outlet if you want to partake it. Make sense?
Absolutely. Now, I would like to ask you all 3 one question. If you could write a quote on a mirror that everybody would read once a day, all people, Desiree, what would you write?
Be conscious.
What would be your message?
We are allowed to do everything.
We are?
We are allowed to do everything.
Yeah, I don't know. Take action?
What?
Take action.
Thank you so much. It was an honor. Thank you for this panel. Thank you.